AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at my own. I, 32F, have always considered myself close to my family, especially my younger sister, Lila, 28F. Growing up, we shared a lot: bedroom secrets, fights over clothes, and family vacations. But over the past decade, things have been more complicated. Lila has always been the golden child in our parents' eyes, and while I never minded too much, it has created some tension between us over the years. About 3 years ago, I got engaged to my partner, Jason, 34M. We've been together for almost 6 years, and I was genuinely excited to start planning our wedding. I was very meticulous about the details and wanted to make it a meaningful event without being over the top. My parents, as expected, had opinions, but the real drama came from Lila. From the moment I announced my engagement, she started inserting herself into everything. She offered advice that constantly contradicted what Jason and I wanted, criticized our choices, and subtly made comparisons to her own wedding, which had been a few years earlier. I tried to brush it off, thinking she just wanted to help, but it became exhausting. The breaking point was during my bridal shower. Lila somehow convinced my mother to host it at a high-end restaurant instead of at home, claiming it would be more memorable. Fine, I thought, maybe this would be nice. But she then invited dozens of people I barely knew and completely ignored my guest list. During the party, she repeatedly made comments about how grand her own wedding had been and suggested that my shower didn't measure up to what our family deserved. By the end, I was crying in the bathroom while Jason tried to calm me down. It felt humiliating, like nothing we did would ever be enough because she always needed to be the center of attention. The wedding day itself was even worse. Lila insisted on being involved in the seating arrangements and somehow ended up at the head table next to my parents instead of with her husband and her friends. During the ceremony, she whispered comments to people nearby about how interesting my dress choice was, and afterward, at the reception, she monopolized the dance floor and repeatedly interrupted our speeches. The culmination of everything was when she took over the microphone during my best friend's toast, turning it into a monologue about her own life. Jason and I left early that night, feeling embarrassed and defeated. Fast forward to last year. Lila got engaged to her now fiancé, Tom, 30M, and I tried to convince myself to put the past behind me. She started sending me updates about the wedding plans almost immediately. Invitations, dress fittings, guest lists, seating charts, you name it, she sent it. I tried to be polite and interested at first, but then things got weird. She began asking me to help with her wedding on my free time and guilt-tripping me if I hesitated. She framed it as if my input was crucial, but it always revolved around making sure she looked better or her day was more impressive. It felt very manipulative. I told her that Jason and I wanted to focus on our own lives and couldn't commit to helping with the planning. That's when she started sending passive-aggressive messages like, "I guess I can manage without my sister," or "I didn't realize you'd be so busy with nothing." I tried to ignore it. Then, 2 months ago, the final straw happened. She called me in tears, claiming that she needed me to pick out her bridesmaids' dresses with her because she didn't trust anyone else to make the right choice. I reminded her that I had my own obligations and, honestly, that I didn't want to be pulled into her drama again. She blew up on the phone, accusing me of being selfish and saying I didn't care about our family. She sent a follow-up text threatening that if I didn't help, I wouldn't be welcome at the wedding. That was it for me. I told her I wouldn't be attending, explaining that after everything that happened at my own wedding, I wasn't willing to subject myself to that kind of stress or humiliation again. She called me cold and said I was destroying our relationship. My parents are furious with me. They say I'm overreacting and that I should rise above past issues for the sake of family unity. They've even hinted that my absence might affect my relationship with the rest of the extended family. Jason supports me fully, saying he doesn't blame me for refusing to deal with what was essentially emotional sabotage. Some of my friends say I'm justified, while others suggest I should try to forgive and forget for the sake of tradition. I feel torn. Part of me wants to maintain a semblance of family peace, but another part of me knows that attending her wedding under these circumstances would likely lead to more tension and emotional exhaustion. I've offered to send a gift and a heartfelt card, but Lila responded tersely, saying that a gift isn't enough and that she expected my presence. I'm beginning to accept that maybe our relationship isn't as close as I thought it was, and I'm struggling with guilt about setting boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did at mine and the ongoing manipulation during her planning. I genuinely don't want to hurt her, but I also don't want to repeat the experience of feeling invisible and humiliated on what should be a joyful occasion. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our personalities started clashing. Emma has always been the type to dominate conversations and expect things to go her way. And while I used to let it slide, over time I've realized that it's draining for me to be around her for extended periods. Despite this, I've always tried to maintain a relationship with her because family is important to me. About 6 months ago, Emma got engaged to a man named Josh, 35M. I met Josh a few times before the engagement, and I didn't have any strong feelings either way, though I found him slightly arrogant and dismissive. He's very charming when it benefits him, but often makes snide comments in front of other people, especially about topics he knows will make them uncomfortable. I brushed it off at the time, thinking maybe I was being overly sensitive. After the engagement, things started to escalate. During the engagement party, Josh made a few offhand remarks about me that were supposedly jokes. For instance, he commented on my career choice in front of everyone, saying it must be nice to have a job where you just get paid for showing up. He also made subtle digs at my appearance, which made me visibly uncomfortable. Emma laughed along, saying he was just teasing, but the room fell silent, and I excused myself shortly afterward. I tried to talk to Emma about it privately, and she said I was overreacting and that I needed to learn to take a joke. That stung, but I let it go at the time. Over the next few months, Josh's behavior didn't improve. Whenever we met, he would make similar comments, sometimes about my personal life, sometimes about my work, and always in a way that seemed designed to belittle me. Emma would always defend him, saying he doesn't mean anything by it and that I should loosen up. I started avoiding family gatherings because I dreaded having to deal with him, and Emma started pressuring me to come, insisting that it was important for family unity. Every time I explained that I didn't feel comfortable around Josh, she would get upset and accuse me of being selfish. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emma asked me to be part of the wedding party, and I politely declined, citing my discomfort around Josh. She became visibly upset, saying that it hurt her feelings and that it was unfair for me to let him dictate my involvement in her wedding. I tried to explain that it wasn't about controlling her or her choices, but about my own boundaries. She didn't accept that. She even tried to guilt me by saying that my absence would be noticed by other family members and that I would be letting everyone down. The breaking point came about a month ago. There was a family brunch where Josh was present, and he made a particularly cruel joke about me in front of our parents and extended family. He said that I must have settled for mediocrity in my career and lifestyle, and that I probably thought being single was a choice. Everyone laughed nervously, but I felt humiliated. Emma didn't intervene and later told me I was being too sensitive and that I needed to get over it if I wanted a relationship with her. That night, I decided I couldn't support the wedding by attending. I texted her that I wouldn't be going, explaining that Josh's repeated disrespect and her failure to address it made it impossible for me to be comfortable at her wedding. Emma's reaction was explosive. She called me multiple times, left long voicemails, and even sent messages to our parents asking why I was being so cruel to her and destroying her special day. Our parents were sympathetic to her initially, saying that weddings are important and I should put aside personal issues for family. I tried explaining my perspective calmly, but they seemed to minimize my feelings, focusing instead on how hurt Emma was. Emma also told mutual friends, framing me as the problematic sibling who was holding a grudge. I've had people I barely know reaching out to me, telling me I should reconsider and that I'm being unreasonable. This has been stressful, and I feel like I'm being pressured into accepting treatment I find abusive just to avoid conflict. Since then, I've stood firm in my decision, though it's caused a serious rift. My parents are upset. Emma refuses to speak to me except through occasional texts, and I've been left feeling isolated. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting or being selfish by skipping the wedding, especially since other family members are disappointed. On the other hand, I genuinely feel that being around Josh would be emotionally harmful, and attending the wedding under those circumstances seems impossible for me. I want to maintain a relationship with my sister, but I also need to protect my mental health. I'm not sure if I handled this correctly, or if I should have made more concessions for the sake of family harmony. I haven't tried attending the wedding under duress because I think it would create lasting resentment and possibly escalate conflict, but my absence has already led to significant family drama. I feel trapped between protecting myself and maintaining relationships, and I'm not sure if my stance makes me the jerk in this situation. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior and her refusal to acknowledge it. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she made a huge mistake that affects both of our families. This has been eating at me for months, and I'm still unsure if I'm in the wrong here. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were really close, but as adults, our lifestyles have diverged a lot. I have a stable career in tech, own my house, and have been very careful with finances. Emily, on the other hand, has always been more impulsive and has struggled with money, even though she's smart and capable. About a year ago, Emily got engaged to a man named Jason. Jason seems nice enough, but he has a history of financial irresponsibility that Emily didn't really grasp when they got serious. She ended up taking out a joint loan with him to buy a house. Initially, everything seemed fine, but then the problem started. Jason's spending habits are extreme, and Emily wasn't prepared for the financial load. She called me in tears a few months ago because she couldn't keep up with the mortgage and utility payments. I have always been very careful with money and have my own responsibilities, including paying off my mortgage and helping my parents occasionally. When Emily asked me for help, I hesitated. I explained that I couldn't take on her financial obligations, as it would jeopardize my stability. I suggested she speak with a financial advisor, consider refinancing, or even sell the house if necessary. Emily didn't like that answer and started to guilt-trip me, saying I was her sister and should always have her back. At this point, I should mention that our parents are in the picture too. They are retired and live modestly. They offered to help Emily, but only with very strict terms. They would give a loan, but expected repayment on a structured schedule. Emily didn't like this either and came to me again, asking if I could cover part of the payments so she could avoid bothering our parents. I again said no. She got angry and accused me of being selfish, saying that if I really cared about family, I would help her keep her home. Then things escalated. Emily stopped talking to me for a few weeks. During that time, Jason kept pressuring her to ask me for more money. He told her that I had no excuse because I make good money and that I was letting our parents down too by not helping. I was frustrated, but I didn't give in. I feel like it's unfair to take responsibility for someone else's financial mistakes, especially when I've tried to provide guidance and solutions. Eventually, Emily and Jason's financial situation worsened. They fell behind on the mortgage, and the bank started sending notices. Emily reached out to me again, pleading for help. She said she had no one else to turn to and that if I didn't help, she and Jason would lose the house. I still said no. At this point, our parents also refused to give more money because they had already stretched themselves thin. This is where the family drama really blew up. Emily started telling everyone in our extended family that I refused to help her because I'm cold and money hungry. She also told people that I didn't care about family, which isn't true. I've helped family members in the past when it was reasonable, but this situation felt different. I have my own life and responsibilities, and I didn't think it was fair to bail her out of a problem that stemmed from decisions she made with Jason. Emily's friends also weighed in, and some of them agreed with her that I should help because I'm financially stable. This added to the pressure, and I started to doubt myself. My partner and I had several long discussions about it, and we both agreed that while it's painful to watch someone you love struggle, enabling their poor financial decisions doesn't help anyone in the long run. Fast forward to now. Emily and Jason are selling the house and moving into a smaller rental. She has unfollowed me on social media and refuses to speak to me beyond necessary family gatherings. Our parents are disappointed in the conflict but understand my side. I feel a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because I maintained my financial stability and didn't let myself get trapped in a risky situation. Guilt because my sister is upset with me and our relationship is damaged. I keep replaying the situation in my head, wondering if I was too harsh, if I should have given her at least a partial loan, or if my refusal makes me a bad sister. I truly tried to offer guidance and alternatives, but it seems that nothing I suggested was acceptable to her. I also recognize that our parents are limited in how much they can help, and I didn't want to be the family member who overextends themselves and causes long-term harm to my own life. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to financially help my sister after she got herself into this situation, even though it means she lost her house and our relationship has become strained. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother stay at my house after he caused a huge scene at my wedding. This all started last year when I, 32F, got married to my husband, Mark, 34M. We had been together for 8 years, and we finally decided to have a small but meaningful ceremony with close friends and family. I have a younger brother, Alex, 28M, who has always had a bit of a volatile personality. He's smart, funny, and talented, but he has a long history of impulsive behavior and gets easily frustrated when things don't go his way. My parents always try to moderate his behavior, but it often fell on me and my husband to deal with it when he acted out. The wedding planning itself was stressful, as any wedding is, but we were careful to make sure it was manageable and within our budget. We decided not to have a traditional big wedding because both of us hate crowds and wanted a relaxed, intimate setting. We informed everyone in advance, including Alex, that the wedding would be limited in size and that certain guests, like distant friends, wouldn't be invited. Alex seemed okay with it at first. The day of the wedding, everything went smoothly until the reception. We had planned a small dinner at a local hall, and everyone was seated and enjoying themselves. Alex had brought a friend along without asking, which immediately made me tense. When I noticed, I politely asked him to speak with the venue manager, but he refused and got defensive, claiming he didn't know it mattered. I didn't push the issue further, as I didn't want a scene and decided to let it slide. However, things escalated during the speeches. Alex, apparently upset that his friend wasn't given a formal welcome or recognition, stood up in the middle of my father's toast and started loudly complaining about how unfair this all was and how he should have been given a special role like the best man. He went on for several minutes, interrupting the speeches and drawing attention away from the ceremony. Guests were whispering, some were laughing awkwardly, and my father looked mortified. I tried to calm him down, but he refused to stop and ended up storming out with his friend, leaving a trail of chaos behind. The rest of the night was difficult. I spent most of it apologizing to our guests while trying not to cry. Mark was furious and told me afterward that he could not believe Alex had acted that way. My parents called me several times over the next week, insisting that I should forgive him because he was family, but they also acknowledged that he had been out of line. I tried to move on, but the incident left me anxious about seeing him again. Fast forward 6 months. Alex had been going through a rough time financially and emotionally. He called me out of the blue and asked if he could stay at our house for a few weeks until he got back on his feet. I was hesitant because our home is small and we live in a modest apartment with 2 bedrooms. I also didn't want to risk another confrontation or let his impulsive behavior disrupt our lives again. Mark was strongly against it, saying that he didn't feel safe or comfortable having Alex live with us. I told Alex honestly that I couldn't accommodate him. I explained that our home is small, that we need our space, and that after the wedding incident, I wasn't sure it was a good idea. He reacted poorly. He accused me of being selfish, of not loving him as a sister, and said that Mark was being unreasonable. He said, "You don't care about family. You just want to punish me forever." I tried to stay calm and reminded him that I would support him in other ways, like helping him find temporary housing or assisting with his job search. But he refused to listen. Things escalated when he started posting on social media about me and Mark. He wrote long posts implying that we were heartless and that I was a bad sister, although he didn't mention the wedding incident specifically. Mutual friends reached out to me, expressing discomfort and saying they felt caught in the middle. It became a significant source of stress, and I started avoiding social media altogether to stay sane. A few weeks ago, Alex showed up unannounced at our apartment. He said he had no other place to go and expected us to make room for him. Mark was furious and asked him to leave immediately. Alex refused, saying it was family and that I was abandoning him. I called my parents for support, and they came over to mediate. After a long and tense discussion, Alex finally left but slammed the door on his way out. I felt exhausted, frustrated, and emotionally drained. Now, some of my relatives have taken his side, arguing that I should let him stay because he's family and that I'm being too rigid. They say that I should forgive and forget the wedding incident, that I'm making a big deal out of a small argument. On the other hand, my husband and closest friends support my decision, saying that setting boundaries is healthy and necessary, especially with someone who has a history of explosive behavior. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I don't want to be cruel to my brother. On the other hand, I have to protect my home, my marriage, and my mental health. I've tried to help him in ways that don't involve living with us, but he seems unwilling to accept anything short of moving in. I'm worried that if I let him stay, it will create more tension, disrupt our lives, and possibly even damage my relationship with Mark. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother stay at my apartment after everything that happened, especially the wedding incident. I feel guilty because he is family and struggling, but I also feel like my limits and well-being matter. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she completely ignored my boundaries. I, 34F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. My younger sister, Emily, 29F, has a history of being dramatic and impulsive, which has caused tension between us over the years. Despite this, I've always tried to support her when I could. I own a house that I bought a few years ago. It's modest but cozy, and I've invested a lot of time and money into making it exactly how I want it. I enjoy hosting small gatherings, but I've always made it clear to my family that I am very protective of my personal space and am uncomfortable with large events in my home. A few months ago, Emily got engaged and immediately started planning a huge wedding. From the start, she asked if she could use my house for the wedding ceremony and reception. I told her that my house is not suitable for large events, and I would not feel comfortable having a wedding there. I suggested she consider renting a hall or hosting it at her in-laws' place. She became upset, but didn't press the issue too hard at that point. Things escalated when she started sending me Pinterest boards, photos, and detailed descriptions of how she envisioned the wedding setup at my house. Each time I reminded her that I was not comfortable hosting it, she would say things like, "It would mean so much to me if you did this for me," or "It would be perfect here." I try to stay firm, explaining that my house is small, I value my privacy, and large gatherings are very stressful for me. She said she understood, but it didn't seem like she actually accepted it. A couple weeks ago, I received a call from my parents. They told me Emily had started telling people I was reluctant and selfish because I wouldn't let her use my house. My parents said they were disappointed in me for not making what they called a huge family sacrifice. I was frustrated because I had repeatedly explained my boundaries and offered alternatives. The breaking point came last weekend. I went out for the day, and when I returned, I found that Emily had come over with a few of her friends to check out the space for her wedding. She hadn't asked me beforehand, and I was furious. I told her immediately that she had no right to just show up at my house and that she needed to leave. She argued, claiming she was just trying to be proactive. I told her that this was a clear violation of my boundaries, and I asked her to leave. She refused to take it seriously and said she would just stay for a little while. I had to call my parents to mediate, and eventually they convinced her to leave, though she left in a huff. After this incident, I sent a detailed email to Emily explaining that while I love her, my house is my sanctuary, and hosting a large event is simply not something I can do. I also reiterated that I am willing to help in other ways, like helping her find venues, assisting with decorations, or contributing financially, but my house is off limits. Emily has not responded to my email, and my parents have been subtly pressuring me, suggesting I am being selfish and difficult. The family group chat has been a nightmare. My parents keep sending messages implying that I am ruining Emily's dream and that I need to learn to compromise. Emily's friends have even started messaging me directly, asking why I won't help make her special day perfect. I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored, and I'm starting to resent my sister and family for not respecting my space. I want to be supportive, but I also feel like being forced into hosting a massive wedding in my house would be extremely stressful and could cause serious tension. I've offered tangible alternatives and support, but it seems like no one is hearing me. My friends say I'm in the right for setting boundaries, but my parents' pressure and Emily's disappointment are making me second-guess myself. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house. For her wedding after she repeatedly ignored my boundaries and even came over uninvited. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain when, in reality, I'm just trying to protect my personal space and mental well-being. But I also understand that weddings are emotional and that my refusal has hurt my sister. I just don't know where to draw the line when my boundaries are completely dismissed and family expectations seem to override my comfort. Has anyone else been in a situation where a family member demanded something that directly conflicts with your personal boundaries? And how did you handle it? I want to support my sister without compromising my own space, but it feels like an impossible balance right now. I've considered offering financial support for the venue or helping coordinate things from the outside, but I'm worried she'll see it as a half-hearted effort and continue blaming me. I don't want our relationship to be permanently damaged, but I also can't let my house be turned into a venue against my will. So, Reddit, AITA for standing firm and refusing to host my sister's wedding in my home, despite her repeated attempts to override my boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house, even though he has nowhere else to go. I, 28F, live in a small city with my partner, Mark, 30M. We've been renting a 2-bedroom apartment for the last 4 years, and we are quite content with our setup. My sister, Rachel, 26F, has always been a bit dramatic and tends to lean on family whenever things go wrong, but until recently, I've managed to keep some boundaries with her. Rachel recently got engaged to someone I'll call Tom, 29M. Tom has had a history of unstable jobs and moving around a lot, but Rachel is head over heels and seems willing to overlook a lot of red flags. A couple of weeks ago, Rachel called me in tears because Tom had been evicted from his apartment due to unpaid rent. She said that he has nowhere else to go and begged me to let him stay with Mark and me until he gets back on his feet. At first, I hesitated, but Rachel was very emotional and kept insisting that it would only be for a few days. I told her I needed to think about it because our apartment is small and we have routines that I didn't want to disrupt. I spoke with Mark, and he was uncomfortable with the idea. Our apartment has 1 bedroom for us and 1 spare bedroom that I use as a study/guest room. We already have a cat, which Tom is allergic to, and Mark works from home full-time. I explained to Rachel that having Tom stay over could be stressful for all of us. She responded by saying that I was being selfish and that a sister should always help family in need. After a few days, Rachel called again. She said that Tom had nowhere else and was desperate. She said it would just be for a week or 2 and that we could figure things out as we go. I still said no, politely explaining our space limitations and the cat situation. She accused me of choosing Mark over family and letting a loved one suffer. I was frustrated but still tried to be kind, offering to help Tom look for temporary accommodations elsewhere, like a motel or a friend of friend. She seemed unimpressed. Then things escalated. Rachel texted me that Tom had been at her apartment, but the landlord wouldn't let him stay there anymore. She demanded that I let him crash at my place at least until the weekend. I reminded her of my reasons and suggested she contact local shelters or Airbnb options. She called me while crying hysterically, saying that I was destroying her life and that if I didn't help, she might not forgive me. I finally lost my patience and said that he couldn't stay with us, period. She accused me of being cruel and unfeeling. A few days later, she started posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about people who refuse to help those in need and family who only care about their own comfort. I didn't respond. Then, Tom somehow managed to contact me directly. He said he understood I didn't want him there, but he also said that he felt unwelcome in the family because of me. He hinted that Rachel might call off the engagement if we didn't bend, saying she feels we don't support her relationship. I didn't respond to him either. Over the next week, Rachel kept sending me messages pleading for me to change my mind. She even suggested that Mark could sleep in the living room while Tom stays in our bedroom. I flat out refused, explaining that Mark worked from home and needs a quiet space. She accused me of being controlling and domineering and said that I was putting Mark's comfort above her fiancé's basic needs. Eventually, Tom found a friend who let him stay temporarily, but Rachel has not stopped giving me the silent treatment. She barely speaks to me and Mark when we see her in family gatherings. Our parents are caught in the middle, saying they don't want to choose sides, but clearly they think I should have let him stay. Mark and I are both feeling stressed and guilty because our family thinks we overreacted, but we also feel like we have the right to maintain boundaries in our own home. I understand that Tom was in a tough spot, and I offered other kinds of help, like helping him find a place or giving him some groceries, but I drew a line at having him stay with us. Rachel thinks that line was too far and that I'm being cruel. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment, even though he had nowhere else to go. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her dog to my wedding after she promised she wouldn't. I-29F have always been the kind of person who dreams about their wedding from a young age. I'm very particular about details, and over the years, I had a very clear vision of what I wanted my day to look like. When my fiancé, Jake, 31M, and I got engaged last year, we immediately started planning. One thing I knew from the start was that I didn't want pets involved in the ceremony. My reasons were simple. I'm allergic to certain dogs, I was worried about guests who might have phobias, and I just wanted a smooth, predictable day. My sister, Emily, 27F, has a dog named Max, a large, very energetic golden retriever. Emily is extremely attached to Max and often treats him like her child. For years, Max has been a part of family events, and Emily has always joked about wanting him included in everything, including my future wedding. I always laughed it off and told her, Max will have to stay home on the big day. I thought the conversation was clear. Fast forward to last month. Emily had been visiting and brought up Max again. She asked, so, can Max walk down the aisle with me? I laughed and said, no, Em, we talked about this. He's not coming. You promised you'd leave him at home. She looked annoyed, but didn't argue then. I thought the issue was settled. About 2 weeks ago, she sent me a message saying, I really hope you don't mind, but I invited Max to the wedding. He's coming with me. I was shocked. I immediately called her and reminded her that we had agreed Max would not be there, that the venue has strict pet rules, and that several guests have allergies. She said, I don't care. It's my wedding too, sort of. You never invited me to be part of the planning in that way, so I'm just making my own plans. I tried reasoning with her, but she became emotional and said I was being heartless and ignoring family traditions. I spent the next few days discussing this with Jake, our parents, and the wedding planner. Everyone agreed that it was not safe or practical to have Max at the wedding. The venue explicitly does not allow pets inside, and even if we somehow snuck him in, there would be chaos. I sent Emily a final message stating very clearly that Max was not allowed, and that if she tried to bring him, we would have to ask her to leave. Emily responded with a long message accusing me of being controlling and selfish. She said that I was ruining her chance to be part of the day and that Max is practically a family member. She also suggested that Jake and I were overreacting and ignoring what really matters. I didn't respond immediately because I didn't want to escalate things, but my parents advised me to stand firm. Yesterday, Emily called me crying and said I had turned her into the bad guy and that she might skip the wedding entirely. She claimed she was sacrificing her own happiness for me and that I was being unreasonable. I told her that my wedding was not negotiable and that she could attend without Max or not attend at all. She ended the call very upset. Since then, my extended family has taken sides. Some people say I'm being too strict and that it's just a dog, while others agree that my rules for my wedding are valid. Emily has also posted passive-aggressive messages on social media about sisterly love and betrayal, which has caused tension among our relatives. I feel guilty because Emily is my sister and I do love her, but at the same time, I think that my wedding is one day where I should get to decide what is allowed and what isn't. I am stressed because I don't want my sister to boycott the wedding, but I also don't want to compromise on rules that are there for safety and comfort. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her dog to my wedding after she promised she wouldn't. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister move in with me, even though she's struggling financially. I, 32 am, live in a small city about 2 hours away from my family. I work in IT and own a modest 2-bedroom apartment, which I moved into about 3 years ago after renting for most of my adult life. I live alone and, honestly, enjoy my independence. I have a good routine, a stable job, and I'm comfortable with my lifestyle. My younger sister, Sarah, 28F, has had a rough few years. She's been bouncing between jobs, some in retail, some in freelancing, and she hasn't had a stable place to live for a while. About a year ago, she moved back in with our parents after her lease in another city ended, but things at home haven't been great. She's been having frequent arguments with my parents, mostly about finances and personal responsibility. A couple of months ago, she reached out to me and asked if she could move in temporarily. She framed it as needing a fresh start and said she'd pay me rent once she got on her feet. At first, I was hesitant but considered it. I have a spare bedroom, and I felt a little guilty for saying no. I asked her how long she expected to stay and what her plan was. She didn't have a clear plan. She said she'd figured out once she got here, which made me uncomfortable. I told her I needed a clear timeline and a plan for contributing to the household, like rent or utilities. She said she'd start paying once she got a job, but couldn't promise a timeline. I explained that my apartment is small, and having someone move in without a plan could disrupt my life. Sarah got upset. She said I was being unreasonable and selfish, and that families should help each other, especially in tough times. She accused me of having never understood what it's like to struggle because I've had a stable job for years. I tried to explain that I do understand struggling. She knows I took years to get to where I am, but I also value stability and clear boundaries in my home. The situation escalated when she started telling other family members I was refusing to help her because I didn't care about her. I got texts from my parents, aunts, and cousins asking why I wouldn't let her stay, and I tried to explain politely that I wasn't comfortable with an open-ended arrangement. I even offered to help her look for apartments in my city or help with temporary storage for her belongings while she figured things out. She rejected those offers and insisted she wanted to live with me. About 2 weeks after this, she posted on social media that I was cutting her off and refusing to help family in need. That post got some backlash from mutual friends, and I felt increasingly pressured. I realized that if I said yes under that pressure, it would likely create tension and resentment on both sides. I decided to firmly say no, explaining that I could support her in other ways, but that living together wasn't possible under the current circumstances. I tried to be empathetic but direct, and I reiterated that I could help her with job applications, references, and budgeting advice. Since then, our relationship has been strained. She barely talks to me, except for short, sarcastic comments when we see each other at family events. Our parents are disappointed and hint that I could have done more. Some extended family members agree with her point of view, saying I should have opened my home because family comes first. Others quietly support me, say my boundaries are valid and it's unfair for Sarah to demand to move in without a concrete plan. Here's why I'm conflicted. Part of me feels guilty because she is genuinely struggling, and I want to help. I also worry about my image in the family and whether I'm being perceived as uncaring. On the other hand, I value my space and independence, and I feel that agreeing to an open-ended living situation without clear financial contribution or responsibilities could create long-term tension and resentment. I also worry about enabling her to continue avoiding responsibility if I let her move in without a plan. To be honest, I feel like I'm being vilified for protecting my personal boundaries, but I also don't want to alienate my sister completely. I've been trying to compromise by offering support in ways that don't involve her living with me, but it seems like that's not enough for her. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister move in under these conditions. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though I know it would make her happy. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Claire, 28F. Growing up, we were close in a surface-level way, sharing clothes, secrets, and occasional inside jokes. But underneath, there was always a sense of competition between us. Claire has always been the type to charm her way into things, and I'm more reserved and methodical. Our parents, while loving, tended to favor her in subtle ways, like praising her for social achievements while I got compliments for more practical or intellectual accomplishments. I never resented her directly for this, but it's something that has always lingered in the background. Fast forward to adulthood. Claire got engaged last year to someone I'll call Jake, 30M. They've been together for 5 years, and while I like Jake and think he's generally a good guy, I don't share the same closeness with him that I do with my other friends and family. Claire immediately began dropping hints that she wanted a very intimate, family-centered wedding, and in the same breath, that she hoped I would host it at my house. I live in a moderately sized house in a suburban area. It's not huge, but it's comfortable, with a spacious backyard. The moment she suggested it, I felt uneasy. To give context, my house is my sanctuary. I enjoy my space being organized, quiet, and predictable. Hosting big events at my home isn't something I ever do. My friends know it's rare to have gatherings here beyond small dinners or casual parties. Also, my house has a few ongoing projects, some minor renovations, a half-finished office, and a garden that's slowly being landscaped. It's not show-ready for an event of 50 to 70 people. When I told Claire that I didn't feel comfortable hosting her wedding, she seemed surprised but took it in stride initially. She then started gently pushing, offering to pay for any damages, hire staff, and even help with cleanup. She framed it as a chance to make memories in a familiar space, emphasizing how meaningful it would be to her. I tried to explain that my hesitancy isn't about the money or effort. It's about emotional boundaries. Hosting such a significant life event in my home would feel invasive, and I'm not comfortable having my personal space become the backdrop for someone else's milestone. Claire became increasingly insistent, sending me articles about unique home weddings and suggesting floor plans, decoration ideas, and seating arrangements. She also brought up our parents, subtly implying that if I refused, it would disappoint them. I began feeling cornered, like saying no was somehow selfish. My parents, to their credit, didn't outright pressure me, but they did mention that it would be nice for the family to be together in one home, and seemed to place the moral weight on me. After weeks of discussions, I sent a firm message explaining that my decision was final. I offered alternatives. I could help research affordable venues, assist with decorations, and even host a small pre-wedding dinner, but my house was off-limits for the ceremony and reception. Claire didn't respond for 2 days, and when she finally did, it was a long message filled with disappointment. She wrote that she felt hurt, that I was being controlling, and that I was putting my comfort above her happiness. She also said she didn't understand how I could be so unsupportive, given that I've always been close to her. Our parents called me shortly after to discuss the situation. They were gentle, but tried to convince me to reconsider, suggesting that it might be a once-in-a-lifetime event and that I might regret refusing. I stuck to my stance. emphasizing that while I love Claire, I have the right to maintain my boundaries and that hosting the wedding would compromise my mental health and peace of mind. Since then, the tension has been palpable. Claire is distant when we talk, often curt or passive-aggressive. She mentioned she might plan her wedding without any family involvement at all if hosting at my home is impossible, which feels like an emotional punishment. Our parents have been mediating, but I can tell they're frustrated with the stalemate. A few mutual friends have tried to weigh in, some siding with Claire, others acknowledging my perspective. I want to make it clear that I'm not against supporting Claire in her wedding in other ways. I've helped with dress shopping, picked up a few items for the decor, and offered advice on vendors. I just draw the line at using my personal space for an event of this magnitude. To me, it's about preserving the home environment I've carefully cultivated and protecting my emotional boundaries. Despite my efforts, I feel guilty. Claire's hurt is real, and I hate the idea of being the villain in what should be a joyful chapter of her life. But I also worry that giving in would set a precedent that my boundaries are negotiable whenever someone insists hard enough, especially when it comes to something as significant as my home. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she says it would mean the world to her and my parents hint that it would be the right thing to do. I'm caught between wanting to honor her feelings and needing to protect my own space and emotional well-being, and I don't know if standing my ground makes me selfish or reasonable. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her new boyfriend to my wedding after she humiliated me in front of our family last year. I, 32F, have always been the planner type in my family. My sister, Emma, 29F, has a much more free-spirited approach to life. We love each other, but we have clashed many times over our different personalities. I'm getting married this summer, and for months, I've been carefully planning everything, from the venue to the guest list to the seating arrangements. I wanted this day to feel perfect, not just for me, but for my husband-to-be, Alex, 34M, and for our families. Last year, during my parents' annual holiday dinner, Emma brought her new boyfriend, Jake, without telling anyone beforehand. I had spent the whole afternoon preparing a presentation-style slideshow of our family vacation memories to surprise everyone. When it came time to show it, Emma started loudly mocking the pictures of me and Alex, making sarcastic comments about our outfits, hairstyles, and even the way I smiled. Everyone was uncomfortable, but she kept going, making jokes about how I was so rigid and controlling, and that Alex probably wished he married someone more fun. I tried to laugh it off at first, but when she started going through my childhood photos and pointing out embarrassing moments in front of the entire family, I finally snapped. I told her she was being disrespectful and asked her to leave. She didn't leave right away. She actually argued with me about how I was overreacting. Eventually, my parents had to step in, and she stormed out in a huff, still muttering insults about me. That night, I was humiliated, but I chalked it up to her immaturity and let it go after a week of tension. Fast forward to now. My wedding is in 5 months, and I've been working hard to make it a meaningful, joyful day. I sent Emma a formal invitation with a +1 option. A few days ago, she called me to ask if she could bring Jake. I immediately remembered how she humiliated me last year, and something in me snapped. I told her I wasn't comfortable having Jake at the wedding, given that I didn't feel he was aware of how toxic her behavior had been and how much it had hurt me. I offered to let her attend alone, but she flipped out. She accused me of being controlling, petty, and unfair, saying that she had moved on from last year and that I was holding grudges. I explained calmly that my wedding is my special day and that I want to surround myself with people who will celebrate me, not belittle me. I also reminded her that she had a chance to apologize for her actions last year and hadn't really done so, choosing instead to act like nothing happened. Emma threatened that if I didn't let Jake come, she wouldn't attend at all. She said this would be a huge stain on our family and that I was ruining relationships over one silly incident. Now my parents are getting involved and they're split. My mom thinks I should let Jake come to avoid drama, but she also understands why I'm upset. My dad thinks I'm overreacting and says weddings are about compromise. Alex is on my side, saying it's my day and I shouldn't feel forced to invite someone who might create problems. My friends unanimously support me, saying I'm justified in protecting my emotional space. Since the conversation with Emma, I've been anxious and second-guessing myself. I feel guilty because I don't want my sister to feel excluded, but I also remember the embarrassment and disrespect I felt last year. I've considered asking her to come without Jake and just not sit near him, but I worry this will lead to more tension or passive-aggressive behavior. So AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding, even if it means she might not attend. I genuinely want a peaceful celebration, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries or let past humiliation go unacknowledged. The wedding is supposed to be about love and joy, and I'm torn between maintaining family peace and standing up for myself. I've tried to think of ways to compromise, but every solution feels like it either rewards past bad behavior or invites future conflict. I want to emphasize that my issue isn't with Jake personally. I barely know him. The problem is that he represents the situation that caused me such embarrassment and hurt last year, and I don't feel comfortable welcoming that energy into one of the most important days of my life. I'm also afraid that if I let him in, Emma might feel emboldened to repeat that behavior, and I don't want to deal with any more public humiliation on such a special day. I've reached out to a wedding planner friend for advice, and they suggested either letting Emma attend alone or having a separate pre-wedding celebration with her and Jake, so she still feels included. However, my parents think this is too complicated and would create more family drama. Alex and I are considering writing a formal note explaining our reasoning to Emma, but I don't know if that will make her angrier or help her understand. It's been a week since our last conversation, and I haven't heard back from her. I'm trying not to dwell on it, but the stress is real. I keep going over the incident in my head and wondering if I'm overreacting. On one hand, I want my wedding to be a joyful, drama-free day. On the other hand, I don't want to hurt my sister's feelings or fracture our relationship permanently. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding after the way she humiliated me in front of my family last year. I feel like I'm protecting my special day, but I can't shake the fear that I'm being overly rigid or selfish. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding, even though she's upset about it. I, 32F, have lived in my current home for about 5 years. I bought it with my savings and a small inheritance from my parents. It's not a massive mansion, but it's spacious, comfortable, and exactly what I wanted, a place I could call my own after years of renting cramped apartments. My sister, Lily, 28F, got engaged last year, and almost immediately she started asking if she could have her wedding at my house. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She and her fiancé want a small, intimate, backyard wedding with around 70 guests, which she assures me will be easy to manage. I told her I wasn't sure because hosting a wedding is a lot of work and my house isn't really set up for that many people. I tried to explain that I enjoy my home as a personal space, and having 70 people traipsing through it, even for a day, could damage things and leave me stressed for weeks. Lily responded that I was being selfish and that I should sacrifice a little for family. She started sending me Pinterest boards, rental equipment lists, and links to how I could transform my backyard into a wedding paradise. Every time I expressed hesitation, she got more insistent, saying I was making her feel unloved and unsupported. The turning point came when she started trying to guilt-trip me openly. She told our parents I was being difficult and that they should pressure me into saying yes. My parents are lovely, but they tend to avoid confrontation, and I felt like I was being cornered. I tried to suggest alternatives: renting a small event hall, using her fiancé's family's property, or even having a backyard wedding at her friend's house. None of these options seemed to satisfy her. She wanted my house, and it felt like that was the only acceptable solution in her mind. I eventually said no. I told her I would be happy to help her plan the wedding, suggest vendors, help set up decorations, and even host a small pre-wedding dinner, but my house was off limits for the actual ceremony and reception. I explained again that it's my personal space and that the potential stress, property damage, and overall disruption were too much for me. She accused me of being heartless and selfish. She cried, called me inconsiderate, and sent me messages for days calling me a terrible sister and saying that I didn't care about family traditions. Since then, family gatherings have been tense. Our parents have tried to mediate, but Lily has refused to talk to me unless I apologize. I haven't apologized because I genuinely believe I am within my rights to decide how my property is used. I've offered support in other ways, helping with vendors, decorations, and planning, but she keeps insisting that my refusal is unforgivable and that I should make this one sacrifice for her happiness. Our other relatives are divided. Some say I am right to set boundaries, while others say I'm ruining her special day and family relationships. I'm struggling because I do love my sister, but I feel like her expectations are unrealistic and unfair. I also worry that if I give in, it will set a precedent where my home is always considered fair game for large family events, which I do not want. On the other hand, her wedding is important, and I know she's hurt. I've tried to find a compromise, but nothing seems to satisfy her, and it's causing real tension in the family. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding even though she's upset, and everyone is telling me I should just say yes. AITA for refusing to host my younger brother's wedding at my house after he made an outrageous request. I, 35M, have always been close to my younger brother, Ethan, 30M. We grew up in a small town, and our parents passed away when we were in our teens, so we lean on each other a lot. I've always been a bit more financially stable than Ethan, mainly because I stayed in the same city after college and built a decent career, whereas he moved around a lot and hasn't had a steady job in years. Despite that, I've tried to support him whenever I could, whether it was letting him crash at my place during rough patches or helping him with bills. Recently, Ethan got engaged to his girlfriend, Sarah, 28F. They've been dating for a few years, and while I like Sarah enough, I don't see eye to eye with her on a lot of things. She's very particular, controlling in small ways, and she seems to always put Ethan in the middle of her demands. I try to be polite and understanding, but sometimes it's hard not to notice that their relationship can be a little unbalanced. A few weeks ago, Ethan called me, sounding nervous and excited at the same time. He asked if my house could be the venue for their wedding. I was confused because my house is a standard suburban 3-bedroom. It's nice for day-to-day living, but it's not a mansion, it doesn't have a huge backyard, and there's no event space. I asked why they didn't consider a hall or someplace bigger, and he said that Sarah really wants a cozy, intimate, family-centered wedding, and my house would be perfect. I laughed nervously and explained my limitations, but Ethan assured me that Sarah would pay for anything extra needed, and they could rent tents, chairs, and a small catering setup. I told him I would think about it, partly because I felt some obligation to help, but also because hosting a wedding is a massive undertaking. Over the next few days, I started calculating what it would actually involve. Parking alone is an issue. I live on a quiet street with no driveway space for more than 3 cars. There's no proper catering area. The kitchen isn't equipped for large-scale cooking, and the backyard is barely big enough for 20 people to sit comfortably. A cozy, intimate wedding is one thing, but their guest list was already 50 people, and Sarah insisted on adding more if anyone brought a +1. I decided to have an honest conversation with Ethan. I told him that while I loved him and wanted to support his wedding, hosting it at my house wasn't feasible. I explained all the logistical issues and offered to help them find a nearby venue or help cover part of the rental fee if cost was a concern. I even suggested we could host a smaller rehearsal dinner or a pre-wedding celebration at my house instead, which would keep the family feel, but wouldn't involve 50 guests in my living room. Ethan's reaction stunned me. He immediately got defensive and said I was being ungrateful and selfish. According to him, I had everything he and Sarah could ever want, and refusing to let them use my house was me not supporting his happiness. He said I was being a bad brother and accused me of letting my financial stability make me look down on them. I tried to stay calm and explained that it wasn't about money at all. It was about practicality and the fact that my house literally could not accommodate the event safely. I even reminded him that I had offered alternatives that would still involve me helping in meaningful ways. Things escalated. Ethan started messaging our family members, framing it as though I had refused to help him in the biggest moment of his life, and implying that I was being dramatic. Some relatives started calling me to ask why I wasn't supporting Ethan, which made me feel cornered and unfairly judged. I tried to explain the situation, but some people sided with Ethan because they thought I should just make it worse since I have a house and a good job. Sarah got involved as well. She called me, directly, very agitated, saying that I should be the bigger person and host the wedding for my brother. She claimed that having it at my house would make the event more meaningful and said that Ethan deserves this because he has struggled. I tried to explain that I wanted to support him, but I simply could not host a 50-plus person wedding safely or comfortably at my home. I also felt uncomfortable with the pressure coming from Sarah because it seemed less about family closeness and more about her vision. After this conversation, Ethan stopped speaking to me for a week. Eventually, he called to tell me they had decided to rent a hall instead, but he was still visibly upset. He said our relationship might be different now because I didn't support their wedding in the way he expected. I felt a mix of relief that the wedding would be in a proper venue, but also hurt that my brother thinks I'm selfish or uncaring. Our family has been divided since then. Some people say I should have just dealt with it and hosted the wedding, while others agree with me that it was unreasonable to expect someone to open their home to such a large event. My parents always taught us to help family, but also to know our limits. I feel like I tried to compromise by offering alternatives and supporting them financially and logistically in other ways, yet still feels like I'm being painted as the villain. I haven't spoken much to Ethan since the wedding, which just happened last weekend at the hall. I attended, helped with decorations, and gave a heartfelt speech, but the tension between us was palpable. Afterward, he barely acknowledged me, and Sarah made a point of taking pictures without me. I'm now questioning whether I overreacted by saying no, even though I genuinely felt it was beyond my capacity. So, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house when he and his fiancée insisted on it despite the logistical impossibilities? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a huge family argument? So, this is a long one, and it's complicated, but I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always had a pretty normal sibling relationship. We fought sometimes like most siblings, but nothing extreme. Our parents are divorced. My mom remarried when I was 20, and my dad has been single for the past few years. Emily has been engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 27M, for about 2 years. From the beginning, I got along well with Mark. I even helped Emily plan parts of the wedding, and I was really excited for her. Things started to get tense a few months before the wedding when my parents started arguing about the guest list. My dad wanted to invite his extended family, which included some distant cousins and a few of his friends. My mom was insisting on inviting only immediate family and a few close friends. Emily, trying to stay neutral, said she'd compromise, but tensions escalated because my dad felt hurt that his side of the family wasn't being prioritized. Around this time, my own relationship with Emily started to strain because she began making comments that I felt were subtly dismissive of me. For example, she would tell me that she appreciated me helping with the wedding, but then make little jokes about how I always overreacted about planning details or how I never understood the big picture. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I was just being sensitive, but over time it really started to bother me. About a month before the wedding, Emily's best friend, Sarah, had an incident at a pre-wedding event. Sarah made a joke about me in front of a group of people, suggesting that I was so dramatic and impossible to deal with whenever family disagreements came up. I was embarrassed, but I didn't say anything at the time. Emily later texted me, saying she was sorry Sarah had said that, but that it wasn't a big deal. I didn't respond because I was hurt. A few days later, things escalated at a family dinner that was meant to be a rehearsal for wedding plans. My dad made a comment about the guest list again, saying that it was unfair that he wasn't being included properly. My mom fired back, saying that he was being dramatic. Emily tried to mediate, but ended up telling me privately, "You always take sides with Dad. Can't you just stay neutral for once?" I told her that I was only trying to be fair and that she was ignoring how she had also hurt me by laughing at me through Sarah's joke. She got visibly upset and said, "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's my wedding. I shouldn't have to babysit your feelings." I was stunned. I tried to explain that I wasn't asking her to cater to my feelings, but that I felt disrespected by both her and her friend. She ended up yelling at me in front of everyone, saying, "If you can't be happy for me, maybe you shouldn't even come to my wedding." I left the dinner in tears. My mom texted me later asking if I was okay, and I explained the situation. She said she understood I was hurt, but implied I was overreacting and that I should get over it for Emily's sake. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Emily kept sending me updates about the wedding, which I didn't respond to. My parents kept asking me to try to reconcile, and even Mark reached out, saying he wanted me there and that he didn't want this conflict to happen. I appreciated it, but I couldn't get past how dismissed I felt. Finally, a few days before the wedding, Emily called me. She was crying and pleading, saying, "Please just come. I don't want to go through this day without my sister." I told her honestly that I couldn't. I explained that I felt disrespected and that her comments, along with her friend's behavior and the way she brushed off my feelings, made me feel like my presence wasn't actually wanted, even if she said it was. She started yelling, calling me selfish and dramatic, and said that I was ruining her happiness. I hung up. I haven't spoken to Emily since. The wedding happened without me, and for what I've heard, it went fine. I've been getting texts from various family members asking if I'm okay and urging me to apologize, but I don't feel like I did anything wrong. I genuinely love Emily, and I want her to be happy, but I also feel like she and others minimize my feelings to the point where attending would have caused me serious emotional distress. Some friends have told me that I was justified in standing up for myself, but others are saying I overreacted and that a wedding is about the bride, and I should have swallowed my feelings for the day. My parents are caught in the middle and seem frustrated with both of us. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after this argument? I feel like I was protecting myself, but I can't shake the guilt that I might have hurt Emily deeply by not being there on her big day. I'm trying to understand whether standing my ground was reasonable or if I should have tried harder to put my feelings aside for her wedding. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my family? So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to give all the context. I, 28F, have an older sister, Emily, 32F, and we have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Growing up, Emily was always the perfect child in our parents' eyes. Straight A's, involved in everything, very outgoing. I, on the other hand, have always been quieter, more introverted, and a bit of a perfectionist myself. I always felt like nothing I did was ever good enough for her or my parents, and honestly, a lot of my teenage years were spent trying not to get into her shadow. Despite that, I thought we were doing okay as adults. I've been careful to be supportive of her life choices and her successes, even when she could be dismissive or even subtly cruel. But the last few years have really highlighted some issues. She got engaged last year, and at first I was genuinely excited. I met her fiancé once before she got engaged, and he seemed nice enough. However, the planning for the wedding has been a complete nightmare, and it's made me rethink my relationship with her entirely. From the start, she insisted on a very small, intimate wedding, which we were all okay with. The problem started when she began sending out guest lists and making side comments about who should or shouldn't come. My parents were on the list, which was fine, but she immediately made it clear that my partner of 3 years was optional and would have to be vetted by her. She also made several passive-aggressive comments about me. Once she said she only wanted people who are really happy for us at the wedding and implied that some family members might not meet that criterion. I assumed it was a bad joke, so I didn't react. Then came the bridal shower. She insisted it be all women and excluded me from the planning because she said I was too overbearing with party details. Fair enough, I thought. She wants to do her own thing. But then she had a friend send me a passive-aggressive text about my outfit being too casual, even though I bought a dress that met all the guidelines she'd posted publicly. At that point, I started noticing a pattern. The real breaking point was the engagement party. She invited most of our family, but left me off the initial invites, which I found out from my parents who asked why I wasn't coming. When I confronted her, she said she thought I wasn't interested because I hadn't RSVP'd yet. I told her I hadn't received an invite. She said, and I quote, Well, I didn't think you'd want to come since you never seem happy for me anyway. At that moment, I realized she had been holding grudges against me for years over small things I didn't even realize mattered to her. Fast forward to now. She recently sent me the official wedding invite. The language in it was stiff and formal, almost like she's inviting a stranger. No personal note. No, we'd love to have you there. Nothing. She also attached a note about accommodations that basically said I could stay somewhere nearby, but it would be fine if I decided not to come. This struck me as incredibly cold. I finally decided to sit down and think about whether attending the wedding would be worth it. The more I reflected, the more I realized that every interaction I've had with her during this wedding planning process has been stressful, manipulative, or downright mean. My partner and I have discussed it, and we both feel that if I go, it will not be a joyful occasion, but rather another event where I have to navigate her passive aggressiveness. I also don't want to give her the satisfaction of having me there if she's going to treat me poorly. So I called her last week and told her I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I tried to be diplomatic and explain that I needed to protect my mental health and that our relationship has been strained for a long time. I expected some conversation, maybe even some compromise, but instead, she blew up. She accused me of being selfish, of ruining her special day, and said that this decision shows I've always been jealous and resentful of her. She also threatened to cut me out of family events permanently. My parents are upset too, but they also admit that they see how she has treated me unfairly. Here's the kicker. Several of our mutual friends have reached out and told me they think I'm making the right choice because she has been manipulative in other areas as well, like trying to control their wedding gifts, seating arrangements, and even who she allows at pre-wedding events. One friend even said they were shocked I hadn't already had a major fallout. My question is, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding? I keep questioning myself because it's such a big milestone, and part of me feels guilty for not showing up. But at the same time, I feel like attending would only reinforce a toxic pattern and make me miserable. I want to be fair, but I also need to protect myself. I know some people might say I should go for the sake of family, but I honestly don't think showing up would be genuine. I can't stand the thought of being in a room with her pretending everything is fine. I also made a point to send her a gift, along with a letter wishing her happiness, so it's not like I'm trying to sabotage her day. I just can't be there in person. I'm feeling a lot of pressure from my extended family and some mutual friends to just get over it and support her no matter what, but I genuinely think that doing so would be harmful to me emotionally. So, Reddit AITA for standing my ground and skipping my sister's wedding even though she is accusing me of being the villain. Character count, 6583. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though it would have saved her thousands. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I work a full-time job in finance, own my condo, and live a pretty structured life. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has always been a bit more free-spirited. She's creative, passionate, but also impulsive and financially irresponsible. Growing up, our parents often picked up the slack for her, which sometimes created tension between us, but we've always been close despite it. Last year, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Jake, 30M. When they started planning the wedding, she was initially considering a traditional venue like a hotel ballroom, but after seeing the costs, she started thinking about alternatives. That's when she approached me with the idea of hosting the wedding at my condo. My place is fairly large for a city apartment. I have a big open living and dining area, and I could rent tables and chairs if needed. She explained that it would save her tens of thousands of dollars, and she really emphasized how much stress it would take off her. I paused. My condo is my personal space, and while I enjoy hosting small get-togethers, a full-scale wedding is an entirely different level. I reminded her that a wedding is not just a party. There would be hundreds of people, catering, music, decorations, and the inevitable mess. She brushed it off, saying she would cover all expenses, hire cleaners, and make sure everything was fine. I told her I still didn't feel comfortable, and she insisted that it's just a practical solution and that I was being dramatic. Over the next few months, Emily became more and more insistent. She started sending me Pinterest boards of decorations, floor layouts, and even a tentative guest list of over 150 people. I started feeling stressed thinking about the noise, damage, and the fact that I work early mornings and couldn't just disappear into wedding chaos. I again told her I wasn't okay with it. She became upset, saying I was selfish and that I didn't care about her special day. Our parents got involved and suggested I compromise by hosting only the ceremony or just the reception. I declined both. A week ago, the conflict escalated. Emily called me crying, saying that she felt abandoned by me and that my refusal made her feel like I didn't love her. I tried to explain that my love and support don't require sacrificing my home and sanity, but she accused me of valuing material things over family. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. I haven't spoken to her since, and now my parents are pressuring me, saying I need to make it up to her, that I'm ruining family relationships. My friends say I'm completely within my rights to say no, but some have suggested I might be able to compromise by letting her use the condo just for a small portion of the wedding. I'm feeling extremely guilty. I love my sister, and the thought that she might resent me forever is painful. On the other hand, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that a major event like a wedding should not take place in someone else's home without their full comfort and consent. I'm stuck between wanting to support her and wanting to protect my personal space. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my condo, even though it would save her a significant amount of money and stress. Here's a little more context that might be relevant. My condo is spotless and has expensive furniture. Even with careful planning, I know that having 150 people over, potentially spilling drinks, moving furniture, and using the kitchen for catering would put my belongings at risk. I've hosted smaller family events before, around 20 to 30 people, and even those left me exhausted for days. This wedding will be 5 times that size. Emily has a history of financial carelessness. She suggested a lot of expensive last-minute changes to the wedding plans, like upgrading her catering or buying extravagant flowers. I know that my home being available would make it easy for her to push beyond her budget. My condo is also my sanctuary. After work, I value quiet evenings, reading, or cooking. The idea of losing that for an entire weekend for something I don't fully control stresses me immensely. I've tried offering alternatives like helping her find a reasonably priced venue, contributing financially, or helping with decorations and planning, but she insists that nothing compares to having it at home, and that it would make the wedding more meaningful. She's also hinted that other family members agree with her, and that my refusal might cause a rift in the family. I keep going back and forth in my head. On one hand, I feel like I'm being supportive in other ways. I'm helping plan, giving advice, offering to help financially, and trying to be there emotionally. On the other hand, her expectations feel completely unreasonable, and I can't help but feel like she's prioritizing cost-saving over respecting my boundaries. It's worth mentioning that if I did agree, I would literally have to take a week off work, prepare my home, and live through the chaos of hundreds of people, catering, logistics, and potential property damage. The wedding would be scheduled for a Saturday, with the rehearsal dinner on Friday. So it's not just a single day, it's an entire weekend. Since the disagreement, my sister has not spoken to me, and my parents are subtly pressuring me at family events, which is making the tension worse. I want to maintain a relationship with her, but I also feel like giving in would set a precedent where my boundaries don't matter. I know that weddings are stressful, but I can't shake the feeling that asking me to host a full wedding in my home is crossing a line. Even if she offers to pay for cleaners, rentals, and repairs, it doesn't negate the stress and disruption it would cause me. I feel trapped between guilt and self-preservation. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my condo, even though it would save her a lot of money and potentially make the day easier for her? Or am I being selfish, and should I just find a way to compromise despite my discomfort? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I couldn't keep a secret? This all started about a year ago when my older sister, Rachel, got engaged to her now husband, Jason. I was genuinely happy for her, and for months, I tried to be as supportive as possible. I helped with dress shopping, attended almost every planning meeting, and even offered to help with the invitations and decorations. I consider myself a very involved and loving sister throughout the process. However, things started to get complicated once the guest list began to form. A few months before the wedding, Rachel confided in me about a small issue with one of the guests she had invited, her longtime friend, Lindsay. Apparently, Lindsay had a complicated history with Jason's family. Rachel explained that Lindsay had been very close with Jason's ex-girlfriend, someone who had caused significant drama in Jason's life and with his family, and now, according to Rachel, Lindsay wanted to bring the ex into the wedding in some capacity. Rachel asked me to not mention this to anyone, especially Jason, and that she was planning on gently telling Lindsay that certain boundaries needed to be respected. I agreed to keep the secret, thinking it was a minor issue. Fast forward to the week before the wedding. My parents were visiting, helping with last-minute arrangements. During dinner, the conversation somehow shifted to wedding drama, and my mom, unaware of what Rachel had told me, started talking about past conflicts between Jason's ex and the family. I tried to redirect the conversation, but my mom kept insisting she had to get everything out before the wedding. I got flustered and, without thinking, told her that Rachel had mentioned Lindsay was trying to involve the ex and that there were issues around it. My mom looked shocked, but I assumed it was just part of family gossip. The next day, Rachel called me in tears. She said she was furious because Jason had found out about Lindsay and the ex, and he was now worried about the guest list, the seating arrangements, and potential confrontations. Apparently, the way I had phrased it to my mom was enough for my mom to call Jason's parents, who then confronted Jason. Within 24 hours, Jason and Rachel were scrambling to fix everything, which led to several guests being uninvited and a noticeable tension at the wedding. On the day of the wedding, the atmosphere was heavy. Lindsay was uninvited last minute, and the ex, who had somehow been indirectly informed by Jason's family, made a dramatic appearance anyway. There were awkward glances, whispers, and even a small argument during the reception that Rachel had to step in and diffuse. Guests noticed something was off, and the photographs captured moments of tension rather than joy. Rachel did not speak to me for 2 days after the wedding and only sent me a brief message saying, "Thanks for making my wedding chaotic." Really, I tried to explain to Rachel that I hadn't told Jason directly and that my intention was not to ruin anything. I had just slipped up in a family dinner conversation, which I thought was harmless. She said that by telling my mom, I had triggered a chain reaction that could have been avoided if I had simply kept the secret as she asked. My parents, on the other hand, argued that they were only relaying information they thought was important and that I was being unfairly blamed. Jason has not spoken to me much since the wedding either, and I feel like I have become the villain in a story that spun out of control so quickly. I know I made a mistake by mentioning Rachel's concerns, but I didn't tell anyone in a way that was meant to hurt her. I was also under a lot of stress that week, and the conversation with my mom was spontaneous, not premeditated. I feel guilty and frustrated because it seems like one small slip caused an enormous chain of events. I have apologized multiple times, tried to explain myself, and even offered to help Rachel with post-wedding cleanup and thank you notes to show I was still supportive. She has only accepted some of my help, and the tension remains. Part of me wonders if I am really the villain here, or if this was an unavoidable situation. On one hand, I did betray Rachel's trust, but on the other hand, the whole situation escalated in a way I could never have predicted. My friends think I'm overthinking and that weddings are stressful for everyone, and conflicts like this happen all the time. My parents are divided. My dad says I should have just let it go, while my mom says she was also in the dark about the whole situation and I just made her part of it. I keep replaying that dinner conversation in my head, thinking about the exact words I used and whether there was a way to prevent the disaster. I know I should have kept the secret, but I also can't undo the fact that my mom is talkative and that Jason's family is quick to react. Now I feel like my relationship with Rachel is permanently altered, and the rest of the family seems to side subtly with her. I want to make amends, but I don't know if there's a path back from this, especially because Rachel seems to equate my mistake with intentional sabotage. So, Reddit AITA for unintentionally causing chaos at my sister's wedding by telling my mom about a secret she asked me to keep. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, but the consequences were huge, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. I feel like I made an honest mistake, but the emotional damage seems disproportionate to my action. I want to fix my relationship with Rachel, but I don't know how to approach it without making her feel like I'm minimizing her feelings. At the same time, I'm struggling with the guilt and frustration of being blamed for something that spiraled far beyond my control. I also want to understand whether I truly was in the wrong, or if this is just an unfortunate situation that could have happened to anyone. I feel trapped between my own intentions and the consequences of my actions, and it's affecting how I interact with both my family and my friends. I'm willing to accept that I made a mistake, but I don't want to be unfairly labeled as a villain for something that was unintentional. I also want to know if there's a way to repair the relationship with Rachel and Jason, or if some damage is simply irreversible. I'm learning that keeping secrets is harder than I thought, especially when family dynamics are complicated, but I also wonder if expecting absolute discretion in a high-stress, gossip-prone environment is reasonable. Ultimately, I am torn between acknowledging my failure to keep the secret and recognizing that the chaos that ensued was magnified by the reactions of multiple people, none of whom acted maliciously, but all of whom escalated the situation. I want to be accountable, but I also want to understand if this is one of those situations where the emotional fallout was bigger than the initial misstep, making me more of a victim of circumstance than a true antagonist. I'm trying to navigate the complicated feelings of guilt, frustration, and family tension while figuring out whether I really am the bad guy in this story or if it's just an unfortunate consequence of human error. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.